What if the AI bubble pops? That's something that not many people are really talking about right now. So I want to break it down in the video and talk about what could pop the AI bubble. And I love AI. I use it every day. I pay for the premium subscriptions. However, everybody has AI psychosis right now, and I'm trying to provide a level-headed analysis on what the hell is going on, especially if I'm going to work in this industry and build apps in this industry. I have to keep a clear head. So today or last week, Microsoft canceled their internal Claude Code license because it costs too much. And in a previous video, I talked about the token maxing circle jerk that is going on and how hard it is to actually sell AI for enterprise and build apps for enterprise. And this goes to show you, this is one example. And I'm not an AI doomer. I believe in AI. However, you got to look at things for the reality. If Microsoft, that as an organization basically has AI psychosis and have all these deals with OpenAI and Anthropic and all these data centers and stuff, and they're restarting their nuclear reactor, cancels the internal Claude Code license because the tokens cost too much, basically. So that's what I'm talking about. This token maxing circle jerk is basically like it's pumping up the revenue and the appearance of productivity. It's like when you tell these bots to do something very vague, they're going to try to fill in the gaps and they're going to spend all these tokens. And that's why this is such an amazing business model for Anthropic and OpenAI, because nobody really knows how to build these things efficiently or work with them efficiently. So they just go on this tangent and burn all these tokens, and then Anthropic makes a bunch of money. So Microsoft, which is a very tech-forward company and has embraced AI, has basically said, whoa, this is too expensive. We got to cut this off. All our employees are using it, and the costs are going through the roof, right? So the honeymoon phase for these, 100x engineers who are shipping these vibe-coded slop apps with ugly, like poorly written code, bloated code, is coming to an end, because I think people are they're euphoric right now. And go look at the post by the ClickUp CEO who just fired 22% of their staff, even though they have $300 million in revenue and they were healthy. His post is a perfect example of AI psychosis. Like it's just a rambling mess about how he's embracing the age of efficiency, and he's launching these $1 million bands for 100,000x employees or whatever, And reality is starting to hit a little bit. And this is where I'm going to talk about how this is very important for me to explain that context. I'm going to explain how the AI bubble could pop. So you have these people who have been clicking like monkeys, me included, basically. I've just been clicking like monkeys just to see what the bots can do and what they bring back. It's this experimental phase. So it's pumping the revenue numbers a little bit and pumping the usage numbers. And then you top that off with the record investment by VCs in Q1 2026 of $300 billion deployed across 6,000 startups. Every single one of those startups are using Claude or OpenAI and building these apps and clicking these buttons like monkeys, right? That's the token maxing circle jerk. It's those 6,000 startups. Plus it's guys like me and other people asking about how to make protein cookies and what's my shopping list and stuff like that. Those guys are kind of negligible, but the hardcore startups who are trying to ship code and become racing against the clock to become efficient, they're burning through a massive amount of their budgets with tokens, basically trying to, ship these apps and become efficient. you don't just like become efficient with these tokens out of the box. There's a learning curve with AI. Remember, it's a brand new technology. Claude Code and Codex are pretty new. I mean, OpenClaw, the viral thing that happened with OpenClaw happened just like 2 months ago, right? And I think that accelerated the token maxing circle jerk quite a bit. So you look at that, Microsoft, a big org, cutting their license, probably not permanent. They're probably going to come back again. The 300 billion from the startups, from the VCs to the startups, is kind of concerning about a bubble, because not all these startups are going to hit escape velocity, right? You look at any sort of YC content or VC content, it runs on the power law, right? They're playing baseball. They're trying to hit 2 out of every 10 startups, right? So maybe 10 or 20%, and then the unicorns are a fraction of a percent, right? So hopefully they get lucky and hit a unicorn, but if they hit 2 out of 10 that generate revenue and they can cash out their shares, that's good for them. But the rest die, right? So what's going to happen to those, what is that, let's just say 1,200 of those startups survive. So that's 4,800 startups who exit the token maxing circle jerk, right? Okay, let's be a little bit fair here. Let's just say, 1,200 of those startups succeed, and then what they're kind of betting on right now is, by then, AI will hit more escape velocity with the masses, and they'll do stuff besides, looking up recipes and shopping lists and stuff like that. Like maybe your grandma starts shipping her own vibe coded slop app and just makes her life a lot easier. Okay, that's fair. Maybe you'll get some of that. So you have these two kind of questionable things about a bubble popping, because it's hard to sustain those numbers. These are all record numbers by Anthropic and OpenAI. And remember, they're still startups, right? They're moving at startup speed. They're making changes at startup speed. There's a lot of risk and volatility in startups. I mean, look at what OpenAI did. They canceled Sora, right? That thing it went viral. But it was burning $1 million a day, so they got rid of it, whatever. So you have those two risk factors right now. And then you look at the charts of the chip companies and the memory companies and the cooling companies. And yes, let's just admit it. Charts are basically horoscopes for men. They don't usually tell you what's really happening. They provide a little context, but when you look at these charts, I mean, come on, guys. Like, those charts can't sustain themselves forever. And you hear people say, no, AI is for real. This time is different. This time is different. It happens when every market is irrational and euphoric. You see those things over and over and over again. And you see these charts, and these charts are, they're present in a lot of these different AI picks and shovels plays like Micron, Wolfspeed, all these crazy obscure projects that are basically part of the AI trade, part of the 5-layer AI cake, as Jensen Huang talks about. These charts can't just sustain themselves forever. There's only so much liquidity in the public markets, right? Eventually, those charts are going to pull back. Okay, so you have that risk factor. Then you have the data center stuff, right? So everybody's announcing these 12 gajillion gigawatt, data centers and stuff like that. But how long do these data centers take to build? Something you really have to kind of ask yourself. I mean, it can't be a fast project to build a data center. I don't know how long it takes. It takes probably 1, 2, sometimes 5 years. And if you're familiar with any sort of construction project in your local city or town, they never, ever hit the deadline, and it almost always goes over, never really comes under. There's too many people to manage, logistics, orders. they hit a time frame and they usually don't hit it. So what happens when these data centers that were supposed to go live in 2 years take 3 years? What happens when during that time Anthropic doesn't have as much compute to basically service these startups that are in a token maxing circle jerk, and these startups start getting frustrated, or the apps degrade, or the experience is bad for the users using those apps, and then they give up on AI, right? So then you have that dude, I don't even know his name. Everybody looks for his filings. It came out like a week ago. What the heck is his name? He's a really odd looking dude. You know who I'm talking about? He was like the hero of the AI trade. Everybody was trailing him. He just put like $1 billion in puts or something. Don't quote me on the number. Look it up. So even he's basically saying the AI bubble is going to pop, and he spotted this AI trade 2 years ago or a year ago. I don't know when it was. Even he's skeptical this AI bubble is going to keep going, right? The last kind of signal that kind of signals a bubble popping or forming is you have OpenAI and SpaceX rushing to get an IPO out. OpenAI just announced it. They're probably going to get their IPO going. SpaceX just released their S1, and it's, it's the TAM is 28 trillion for what they're going after. So I'm not going to talk about whether that's accurate enough or not. I love Elon Musk. I actually really admire Sam Altman too. But this video is basically to give you a level-headed analysis. And why are they rushing, right? So they just cleared the private markets of an incredible amount of money, invested in these startups, raising the valuation. So the market is irrational. That doesn't mean these products aren't good. There's a difference there, right? These are amazing products. I love ChatGPT. I love Claude. And I think SpaceX is an incredible company. But that's kind of a signal because they might be seeing that this isn't going to sustain forever. So let's go out and raise a little bit more cash for eventually this hype cycle bubble to kind of deflate. And remember, these guys have been working in tech for 30 years. They understand better than the public that tech goes in cycles and hype cycles, right? The most obvious one is the internet. Hype gets ahead of reality, and then the bubble bursts, and then the builders like Altman and Elon and other people like myself, or one of the 6,000 startups in the token maxing circle jerk, they stick around and build, and they don't really care that the bubble popped. They think AI is a cool technology, just like me, right? And then they build and they pick up the pieces, but look how long it took the internet to actually catch up, for the reality to catch up with the hype, right? It took, when it popped in 2000, it took about 10 years for some good products and apps to start shipping. And it wasn't until like mid, 2010s, 2015, you saw like Robinhood emerge. You saw some really cool apps with great user experiences, Stripe, starting to emerge and really bringing the promise of the internet to the masses. Now, you gotta think that these numbers that we're seeing in the headlines are not sustainable to go up and to the right forever. And these companies are making deals and funding, and it's circulating this liquidity. And then you have, the billions from the VCs circulating revenue to the startups who are token maxing. And those conditions, are what I'm trying to say, are not sustainable for the long term. So that is kind of how I see the AI bubble popping. These data centers are going to not hit their goal of launching. Some of these picks and shovels plays are going to be too backed up, or they're not going to deliver the hardware or the GPUs, which is going to hurt Anthropic or OpenAI potentially, or SpaceX, because SpaceX is essentially an AI company now, right? So they're trying to tap into the AI TAM. And then you look at in the enterprise TAM, and again, you look at the plays like in my previous video where OpenAI and Anthropic are going after enterprise. They bought those consulting firms for billions, the same consultants that the narrative has been saying that they're going to replace. And it just looks like to me that they're racing against the clock, right? So the bubble bursts. Let's just say it bursts tomorrow. What do you do, right, as a builder like myself or some other people? Well, you buckle down and you bite on your mouthpiece and you just build. And that's usually when the really breakthrough innovative apps emerge from the ashes. I'm hoping it's going to be one of my products, but it doesn't have to be when people are using. I mean, AI in its current form has only been around for 2 or 3 years, and it moves so fast that each iteration is probably only 6 months old. So that's kind of how I see it. I would love to hear your thoughts on whether you think the AI bubble is going to burst. But thank you for watching and have a good day.